Running late, running behind, and clicking the wrong damn buttons. But hey, nonetheless, Spirit of 420 here because everything I do is so 420, including I'm running so late, I'm going to have to pop my kratom right now. That way I can feel better during this show. Oh, that tastes like shit, though, don't you know? Look at there, you got a preview into the back of the house. Whoops. And knocking shit over, but hey, it's all good. It's chronic time to get high again, which is basically all day for me. But I don't know if it's like that for some of you, but for me, it's an all day thing. First thing I do in the morning is smoke weed, and the last thing that I do before I go to bed is smoke weed. That's the Spirit of 420 right there. And there's a lot of stuff in between too. So tonight, I just wanted to talk real quick. I wasn't going to do a very long episode. I was going to keep it pretty short, pretty simple. Tomorrow is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think tomorrow is the next. Tomorrow is Thursday. Friday is the next reading of Big Panda Tiny Dragon. So that'll be blah, blah, blah. Like I said, that'll be Friday. Is that right? Today's Wednesday. No, I am on tomorrow. And then Saturday is going to be the day for, that's right. Saturday, I believe, is the reading, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I'm all messed up in my brain because technically I was supposed to go on yesterday. And so I'm a whole day behind. So this is make up for yesterday. So that means I'm on today, tomorrow, which is Thursday, and then again Saturday, right? And yeah, the Big Panda Tiny Dragon reading is on Saturday. But either way, and there'll be, I think next episode will be Afflicted because I'm getting ready to go see, my wife and I are going to go see the new Brendan Fraser. Has anybody heard about this film called The Whale? So it looks really interesting because it stars Brendan Fraser, who has blown up physically. And that was already happening well before he did this film. So, my wife was like, if he got this way for the film, I'm like, no, he was already getting that way. Now, if he got bigger, I guess there's that reality. Excuse me. But there was a film that he did. Sorry, my nose is running all of a sudden. There was a film that he did not too long ago that took place like in the 50s, and he was quite large. So he's been getting large. And then he was in, what was it? He's in the series Doom Patrol. And at the beginning of that, now you don't really see him anymore because he's the robot dude. But when you did see him, he was definitely heavier when he was before he was turned into the robot guy, and he was the driver, right? Because he was like a NASCAR driver or something like that. I'm pretty sure. I started watching that series, and it just didn't. That and Umbrella Academy, neither one for me really, They were good and they were interesting, but I wasn't living or dying for them, you know, put it that way. I will say on a side note, I'm going to be finishing Wednesday here soon, and I wish I had more time to dedicate to watching it because that is actually a really good show. I'll give a full investigation of that, like I said, very soon. But as it stands right now, just know that I thoroughly enjoy it and find it quite amusing as it is. And I find almost everybody, for the most part, is playing their roles well, you know. And I'm from a different generation, and what I mean by that is, I grew up with the TV show. I grew up with the original movie. Then I grew, you know, then I've lived through all the things since. To me, the original films, not the original TV series, okay, which came out before, the original films, and I said it back then, outdid the original, and even people who were part of the TV series said so themselves. So everything, in my opinion, Addams Family related, has to live up to those two films with Raul Julia, who passed away and would have continued on. That franchise would have gone on, but the guy had a heart attack. You know, what are you going to do? He was chosen for another franchise that didn't take off, and I think some of it had to do with the fact that he died. And that was the Street Fighter movie franchise that they tried to get going. Mortal Kombat's done better with that than Street Fighter ever did, that's for sure. I digress. The Whale, back to the whole point of what I was talking about there. If you haven't seen Brendan Fraser, do a search, because this is the star, the stud muffin, if you will, from the Mummy movies of the late 90s and early 2000s. And you can barely recognize him. And the story is about an overweight, I think even a shut-in, right, who is trying to reconnect with his daughter. So, I mean, quite frankly, it actually has my attention. It's definitely a drama. It's not one that's going to be filled with action or anything like that. But, you know, we'll see. Hopefully it's good. Originally was supposed to go see that tonight. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to. I'm going to try to do it while I'm sitting here talking to you folks. Isn't that just hysterical? But yeah, the simple fact of it is that I cannot make it. Oh, no. Apparently it's too late. I didn't do it, so that cost me a whole $1. Well, fuck it. That's that whole unlimited thing. All I do is pay 50 cents per transaction, so fuck it. You know, I lost $1. It's not going to make or break me. That's like losing a dime 10 years ago, you know? So, say la vie. I will probably try to. I was supposed to go see it tonight, but we here in the Springs, I don't know if any of y'all are dealing with it, but we were, I wouldn't say pummeled. It was just a steady snow, but it was the dangerous shit, in my opinion, because it was wet and it was constant and it was freezing. So the roads, no matter how good the salt is, they're just freezing right over. It's more dangerous now. So we had originally had tickets for the morning, but that was nasty, and my wife had an interview. So then we changed it to the nighttime, and I was like, fuck that. We're not driving even 10 minutes to go see a film. It's just not worth it, right? But I will find something to investigate, or I'll do something else. Who knows? Maybe I'll do. I have a ton of other things that I have planned. So I'm not at a loss for material to talk to you folks about. Put it that way. And on that note, back on track. I just have to share this with you because this gives you. So I am one that believes in God, and I know that some people, quite a lot of people, for that matter, don't believe in God and say there's no God. Not everything just happens, by happen chance and coincidence. I believe the exact opposite. I believe everything happens according to a plan, and I think you preview that before you get here. And I also believe that if you keep the faith and pray, then the good times, will continue to happen, even though the bad times will continue to happen. Some people think that, a good life means not having anything bad. That's absolutely incorrect. If you had nothing bad ever happen to you, then how the fuck would you appreciate a great life? A great life is only great because it has had some serious pain and hurt and misery within it. That's why I know I'm leading a great life. And I very much am grateful to God for that. And I know it's God. So just hear me out on this. And hopefully this will give you some idea that I mean what I say. Talk is cheap. Action is everything, right? On the 3rd of October, I was fired. I had very little, what's the word? I had no inclination that it was going to happen. I thought I was at the job that I was going to retire at. Okay. So it was completely out of left field. 19 days later, my son is killed abruptly. And quite honestly, mysteriously, there's some, I'm not going to get into that right now. If you want to hear about that, then go back and watch the other shows where I've discussed it. Not disgusting, discussed it. Now, when this first happened with getting fired, like literally that day, I filed for unemployment. Being fired, I have, being 50, I've been fired before around that, October, November, December time. And when you're fired in Q4, and you're a salesman, generally speaking, you're probably not going to get a job until the new year. The reason being is, many times this is Q4 is one of the best quarters for a lot of sales companies, particularly marketing, SEO, digital marketing, that kind of stuff, because it's the end of the year. And you also have all these companies trying to sell and ramp up for the holidays. At the same time, you also have your biggest lull, because once that like December 16th pretty much hits, the year's dead until around the 5th of January. Like that's it. So you have 2.5 months that you really have to kick ass. And I've even closed deals, in late December, in regards to marketing, where technically I was already on my holiday vacation, but the deal needed to be done. Anywho, so I knew I wasn't going to get a job. Now, the problem, mind you, is that here in the great state of Colorado, unemployment is horribly behind, folks. And I mean, horribly behind. 10 to 12 weeks is what they tell you. That's the first thing, right? The next thing, you can read the reviews on it. You can't talk to anybody. They've gone fully automated. It's all online. So there's nobody sitting there judging you. You just fill out this little thing each week, the certification, right? Well, needless to say, with Christmas upon me, and I knew that I was not going to see $1 until probably at best, the guy even said December 29th. But my boss was a dick and said I had my job through the end of December, because when he fired me on the 3rd and paid me on the 6th, he paid me for the rest of the month plus small compensation, which was nothing. I promise you, it was nothing nearly what I deserved. But again, I digress. The whole point was, I got that check. That basically lasted October. I knew I wasn't going to see any more money, and I had to do Christmas. How we ended up doing it was by the grace, literally, of God and people. Okay, I'm not going to exclude the people, because I'm about to go over a few highlights, and it's continued to be all the way until, just recently. The most recent contribution and donation was from the guys at Urban Growers. And I've got to, as a matter of fact, I got to go to this website so they're on Discord, but there's this website that Sen asked me to go to, and I got to write a review, but I can only do it on this computer, and I'm never up here lately unless I'm streaming. So I got to come up here and do that for them. They absolutely owe it. But between the donations that we received from, and I'll even give a shout out to his second to last job. And what I mean by that, the job that he had just taken a new job and been there for only 45 days. But the Toyota dealership where he worked, not only did all the employees donate, but Toyota donated on top of that. And what I mean by that is they matched it. So there was that. But not to sound rude, it's not like we got even $10,000. You know, it wasn't some highly successful, GoFundMe campaign or something like that. I was gonna do something like that, but then I don't know, there was a part of me that just didn't feel good. So we just opened up some channels and let people know they could donate, and they did. And that was how it was done. I think my wife did one thing on Facebook for 1,000. Anyway, all I can tell you is my stress level has been extremely high. And every time the bank account has gotten down to the last dollar, or every time it's been down to the wire, and I'll explain that, things have happened just right, no matter how shitty all this has been. Okay. And let me give you a for instance. I don't know if I talked about it, but there was a car that he was working on. It was a car that he was working on that day when he was killed, was a Toyota, 07 Toyota RAV4, right? 4-wheel drive with 200,000 miles. Well, 197,000. I knew what the car was worth, but I also knew it was going to take time to sell it. I ended up selling it. By the time I finally sold it, and my minimum in my mind was 5,500. That was the bare bones minimum that I wanted to get for it. I started out in the very beginning with ads listing it for 7,900, because I knew the value of the car. That same car with those same miles in the condition that it was in was going for 9,000, 10,000, even as much as 12,000 at the dealers. So it's just the inflated market that we're in right now for used cars, particularly Toyotas that run for 300,000-400,000 miles. And the engine on her is solid. She was a solid car. That was part of the reason that Sky got her, because he knew he was getting a car at a great price and could turn around and make a bundle. The last one he did was even better. Just to give you an idea, he got this one truck for 500. Him and his brother, not blood brother, but the other brother from another mother, they put about $1,000 of invested into for parts and upgrades and fixing it, plus their time to do the job, and ended up selling it, I think, for 10,500 or 11,000, right? So my son had a good eye for that kind of thing. And needless to say, this was another good situation, but I ended up selling the car, got my 55. I kid you, I had $80 left in the account. $80 left in my account. If you folks understood, number one, my rent alone, I mean, just to give you an idea, just to give you some idea, I'll just give you the big ones because it's not that big of a deal. $2,000 a month for rent is fairly common this day and age. Then another $1,000 for car payments, another $250 for insurance, and then we'll just say, let's say $1,200 to $1,500 for groceries each month because there's 5 people here, and then the mobile phone bill. Now I do have all the family on there, so I do get money from them already, from my other boys that live outside the house that are on there. But still, the mobile phone bill is like $620, $630, something like that. Although it's about to drop some because a lot of these phones are going to be paid off. Anywho, and that doesn't even touch. I haven't even talked about how much we spend on kratom and medical marijuana, right? So you can do the math. $80, that doesn't cover one of those things that I just talked about. And at the time that I sold the car, I was, technically speaking, it was already the beginning of January, so it was well after the new year. I technically owed 3 months of rent, right? Now, 1 month, my landlord is quite a awesome individual, and the month of November, I didn't technically owe. And what I mean by that is she let me slide on that month because I did this once before when we had, during the pandemic, when things got really bad in the beginning. But she let me slide a month there, and then I paid her back an extra $200 on top of rent for 10 months and paid it back. And I asked her if I could do that again. And she said yes, and that I could start once I got a new job. So that was a deferred payment of extra $200 a month. So technically rent's going to be $2,200 once I get a job again. But regardless, at that point, I still had not paid December, nor had I paid January. Because, I mean, I just sold a car. Today's the 19th. I mean, I sold it like, I think it was maybe on the 7th or something like that. Maybe just almost 2 weeks ago, somewhere in there. Anywho, you can imagine one of the first things I did was send my landlord rent and told her that I would, because at that point, that was December rent that I was sending in January. I was like, I'm hoping I'll have January rent soon. And she knew what was going on. In fact, I just had a conversation with her over the weekend. This will give you another perfect example of it, that when it really needs to happen, it does. To me, that is God. That is not fucking coincidence, because it continues to happen to me over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, I cannot stress that fucking point enough. Okay. But this weekend, I'm like, yeah, I don't get it, because it was now more than 14 weeks since I'd been fired, and I was like, okay, I couldn't get anybody on the phone for unemployment. And I even told my landlord and everybody who knew me what was going on knew it. I was like, I just need to talk to somebody to understand what the process is, because what was happening is when I would log in, it kept saying I had some pending issue, right? But we had done everything. We had checked all the boxes and sent in all the paperwork requested, blah, blah, blah. So I told my landlord, I was like, look, can't go Monday. That's MLK Day. So they won't even be open. But I'm driving to Denver first thing Tuesday morning. They open at 7:30. I'm leaving here at 6. Takes an hour and a half. I'll be there and I'll find out what the fuck is going on. So I'm sitting there, and it's Tuesday morning. And I wake up at 6 o'clock, and I was just going to get up and go. I was like, let me just log in. I'll just see. And I'll give this preface. When we logged in on Monday to do my weekly certification, the pending issue was gone. For the first time, it did not say, it had a 0 beside pending issues. And it said that I had been paid for 10 weeks, or at least it had showed where I was owed money for 10 weeks of what they call certifying each week, right? You certify and you get your paycheck. And I was like, oh, well, both my wife and I was like, okay, well, that's at least different. That's promising. So I thought to myself, let me just log in and see. Now, when I did talk to somebody, I talked to one person on the phone in the beginning, and it was a godsend, because even he said, you're rare to get through to us. But he told me, he's like, when this finally starts paying, you'll start getting a weekly check, and then you'll get, however many weeks you're good for. And I was like, okay, but you said it's 10 to 12 weeks behind. So am I going to get 10 to 12 weeks of checks at once, and then it continues weekly thereafter? Or how does it work? He's like, no, you'll get your weekly amount. And if, even though we're 10, 12 weeks behind, you'll get checks for another 10, 12 weeks later. Right. So once I got a job, I would still get unemployment checks from the money that unemployment owed me. So anywho, I thought to myself, all right, let me just log in. I logged in and I looked down. It was funny because I have 3 accounts, and I was about to change that because what was once working is not. But anyway, 2 savings accounts, right? And that's where we had unemployment for my wife when she drew it at the beginning of the pandemic, like so many folks. We had it depositing into savings. So I immediately looked down there for it. I know that's funny. That's where I looked. Well, there was nothing there. And then I looked up, and there was a rather large sum of money. And it was straight up 9 weeks worth of unemployment. And then I ended up getting another one today. Right. But I got that, like, it would, if that hadn't happened, I was walking out the door to drive to Denver. And it's funny because, I'm sure you can imagine that the family right now doesn't like anybody driving at all in dangerous situations. Although, like everybody always tells you, the worst accidents happen all 5 minutes away from home. And it's the truth. He was less than 5 minutes away from home and he was killed. That's, it's rarely on the interstate or driving to the airport type thing. You know what I mean? Or unemployment, a city away. But regardless, the family doesn't like it. So you can imagine. It was just a really nice surprise that it finally kicked in. And it didn't do as they said and totally screw me where I would still be in debt, but I was able to pay out all my bills. And it's funny because when Christmas, I skipped over this earlier and I apologize. But when Christmas came upon us this year, right? What I mean by that is I started doing my Christmas shopping. I don't do it at the last minute, but I usually do it. I start around October, right? That's, sometimes I might even start a little early. In fact, I bought 2 gifts as early as, I think it was right at the beginning of October, actually, was the first gifts I bought. But then when Sky died on the 22nd, there was things that had to happen. So when I came back and I started doing my shopping, I just did it with, what's funny is I had all these accounts that I had opened but hadn't used, and they were, credit accounts that, quite frankly, if your credit's iffy, you can, if your credit's good, you can get it too, and you get a better rate, so people typically use other resources. But, there's a lot of places out there like Finger Hut, Montgomery Ward, 7th Avenue. What's the other one that I love so much that has the food? It doesn't matter. Nonetheless, they have a lot of different things on credit, and they have a lot of different name brand stuff, right? And to give you, for instance, talking about on, doing things on a leap of faith. I didn't max out, but I probably went to about 80%, right, of my credit, which is not what you're supposed to do, but I didn't give a fuck. It was from my family. And on top of that, I went even further because my 2 youngest, it was now time for them to get their first smartphones. Technically they're brothers. Their twin brothers got their first smartphones at 9. They got their first phones at 7. And these kids, one's literally about to turn 9 and the other one just turned 11. So I knew it was time for them to do it. How am I going to get smartphones broke as fuck? Well, when you've been with Verizon as long as you have, as long as I have, and pretty much anybody who starts up a new fucking line with them gets free phones. So I still got them nice free phones, but that's not with a commitment of $60 more, $30 per kid, right? Plus I even added the commitment because they are kids of broken screens. So I can fix up to 3, I think every 6 months or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But that's an extra $50 a month, right? It's all going to work out. So in the last 2 days, everything always works out. Part of a great life is remembering that when it's darkest, it's right around the corner. Things are going to change. If you do not keep the faith, though, then you will not experience the miracle. You really won't. I wondered what my Christmas miracle was going to be this year, and I watched it happen. The fact that I gave my kids still a beautiful Christmas. The family was together. We had a wonderful time. We had a great time with some new faces as well, due to Sky's, unfortunate accident. And it was actually a beautiful Christmas. And right after that, when the stress, and I mean, I'm talking bad stress, can't sleep at night every night. That's been since Sky's death, because wondering where the money's going to come from, blah, blah, blah. And my confidence level was shot, folks. And what I mean by that is I know that I'm good at sales. You don't know me, and that's fine. And what I mean by that is you don't know my sales record, right? But just to the last company by myself in the last 2.5 years that I've been with them, closed over $2.4 million for them by myself with no help from anybody as their sole salesperson, right? So I know my skill set, but when you are beaten, it's hard to display that. And if you are trying to get a job and you don't have confidence, it's like you reek. That's all I know. It's like there's this. Does anybody remember The Simpsons? Gil, right? You got to remember fucking Gil. He's still on The Simpsons now. I'm sure that they still have that fucking character. Gil is the world's worst salesman. Oh, do we have a spammer here? Hit a message. What now? Here are several famous cannabis quotes by. All right. Well, have fun with that. Gil is like the saddest fucking sack in the world, right? He's that salesman that everybody knows that cannot fucking close a wet paper bag, right? He can't close shit, he can't do shit. He's just a horrible salesman. Well, when you don't have confidence and you're trying to come across as confident, you reek like Gil, like Gil's underarms. Put it that way. And what I can tell you is between the unemployment coming through and then the other bit of news I was going to tell you is today my wife went on her first interview. She hasn't been on an interview. She's done a couple of phone interviews, but not a face-to-face. She hasn't been on an interview that I can remember. If she did go on one in the last few weeks, then my memory is just shot, but I don't remember taking her to an interview. First interview that gone to in years, since before the pandemic. She hadn't had a job since March of 20, right? So March of 20 is the last time she had a job, and probably February or January of 19 is the last time she was doing job interviews. And she got the job. That's fucking awesome. Like, literally, it was funny too, because my wife doesn't know this, but I was sitting out in the car. And my wife is a very different person. She's Hungarian. She's, in the simplest of ways of saying it, a little rough around the edges. If you don't know her, she's New Jersey and Hungarian, so she can come across a little bitchy. She has worked extremely hard on these things. And, obviously I know the beautiful person that she is, and I've been in love with her for years. But it was funny because during the interview, I was thinking, they said it was a 30-minute interview, and I was sitting there watching it thinking to myself, man, this is going to end short, and they're not even going to give her the time of day because her skills on interviewing, it's her first interview, right? Like, and everybody knows this, but you have a skill set for interviewing, just like you have a skill set for performing your job, right? There is a skill set to interviewing. And many times your first interview, no matter how long it's been since you've looked for a job, is your worst interview because it's your first interview. So, everything that does go wrong, if you will, does. Everything that can go wrong many times does. And you just end up, blowing it. So I'm sitting out there and I'm smoking a cigarette. It's fucking freezing cold. The snow is just pounding me. And hadn't even been 20 minutes, right? And she called and she's like, I'm all done. And she was really happy. And I was like, holy shit. Pulled around. She's like, I got the job. Da, da, da. Here's the offer letter. Da, da, da. I was like, holy shit, that is fucking awesome. And I say all this because I know we're going to be okay again. I can feel it. And now I know what's really nice is the unemployment gives me the time I need to look for the right job and find the right position, as well as start the company that I had to put on hold, because none of that's changed. I just had to stabilize to the point of being able to at least take care of the family again. And, it's always been my wife and I up until the pandemic. So, it's kind of nice to have her back. I know she's going to be happy to be going back to work and getting out of the house, even if it is for only 4 or 5 hours a day. So when I say I'm grateful, I'm extremely grateful. When I say back on track, what I mean by that, it's not the good things that put me back on track. It's the realization that when it's darkest, it always ends up working out, slapping me in the face yet again. And here's the funny thing, no matter how many times I've been through this, you really get dark. I do. I shouldn't say you, excuse me. No matter how many times I've been through this, I still allow myself. It's almost like I have to reach that bottom point for God to go, okay, here it is. I just needed you to become humble again, back down to, what matters most, and not praying for riches or fame or anything, which, by the way, I haven't done that in years. But, praying for guidance, hope, and faith, and gratitude, love, and support. And I will say this on that note. One of my sayings, one of the things that I came up with is stay true to you and you'll pull through. And it's funny because I see, I'll never name names. I don't do that anymore. I don't call people out. But there's people that I see on these social platforms, right? And that's all I'll say too. I won't even say which ones. And it just disgusts me because it's like, I can't stand seeing somebody who's not even a famous person, right? They're not famous. They're just simply a social presence. And they've got like 8, 9, 10,000 followers, and they're not even following 1,000 people. To me, that is the person that thinks their shit don't stink, right? Like, I'm too good to follow people and engage. Quite frankly, I'm almost equal. And in fact, I need to get on there because I am behind. There's probably the only time I don't follow somebody is if they're one of these sex fiends, especially if like I click on a profile of somebody and it's just sex right away. But, and it's not just followers, it depends on what platform you're on, others are, what is it on? That doesn't matter. You get what I mean. It's just a thing I have. Like, if you want to give back to the world, then it's a 50-50. It's give and take, right? It's give and take. And for every inch you take, you give an inch. And in fact, I personally am at a place of what I call karmic debt that I'm paying, right? And my karmic debt for me is that I'm giving twice as much now as I take, because I used to take twice as much as I gave, right? So to me, the only way to balance that back out is to simply do the opposite, right? I'm not doing this to collect followers. I'm not doing it to collect subscribers. I will continue to try to get more because, and let me explain, with each new follower and each new subscriber, there's the opportunity for me to help them and reach them, and for them to help me, because anybody who I help always helps me. It was interview question today with a company. I was like, one of the main concepts and approaches to my style of training and sales is that as much as I'm teaching them, they're teaching me, right? And the moment that anybody loses that, in my opinion, that's when you stop learning and stop living. So that said, not doing this to gain followers. I'm not doing this to gain subscribers. I'm doing this to help people. The more of those things that I have, the more people I can reach and the more people that I can help, and we can help together. And I know, see, here's where I am definitely confident. I haven't lost this one bit through all this shit, because even from the moment that Sky died, I have literally been helping his friends, my family, other people, and I'm talking about when I say help, I know y'all immediately go to helping them deal with Sky. That's obvious. I'm talking about other life problems. People who didn't know me 4 months ago have now come to me in the last 4 months and asked me serious advice on their sexual relationship, their marriage, raising of their children, how do they approach a new relationship, new friendship, new job. I mean, you name it. I have been approached and here's the beautiful part. This is what makes me feel the best. And this is why I know that I'm on a path to something even more incredible and greater than I can possibly imagine right now. That unfortunately sucks because yes, I did lose a son, but shit fucking happens in this world. And that's all there is to it. Shit fucking happens, and it happens for a purpose. We're not able to see that until we're done. That's part of the learning experience, right? But the fact of the matter is, regardless of that, each one of these people I have helped. They have come back, and I have the text. They have come back and they're like, dude, I've heard this already like 5 times. God, I wish I would have known you a few years ago. I wish I would have known you 10 years ago. I'm like, it doesn't matter, dude. Live now. Now you know me. Fucking reach out. I've dared people, just fucking ask me a question. See if I can't help you. I promise you, unconditional support, unconditional love, unconditional understanding, right? Unconditional support. I think I already said support. What was the other one? There's another one, though. Doesn't matter, because on top of that, I don't judge you. That is all you can do in this world. And to me, it seems like it's mattering because I'm helping people. And this has grown from nothing to what it is now. So where will it be in another 6 months? Which I can't wait to see. Either way, thanks so much for being here tonight. To blaze or not to blaze, there is no question. There is only to get high, to get by. I love all of you. Each one of you are incredible, special, individual people. Remember that. It's never too late to make the right decision. Also remember that. And remember this, you can only live in now. So whatever you've done in the past, you let it go. Again, it's never too late to be different. You start being different right fucking now. That's it. So smoke a joint on me, smoke a joint with me. Part of my belief in this crazy world is that you have marijuana and kratom and other natural things like that to get by, because otherwise the world is extremely difficult to manage just mentally, right? And that's where those really help the most. So have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow night. Don't know exactly what the show will be. I'll announce it tomorrow night. So again, I love all of you. Have a wonderful evening. See you again soon.
You can't have my phone number unless we running up the digits. Let me meditate. I just need a couple minutes. Tryna low bump me, my cojones to the big ass. Bitch, I get high. I ain't looking at the clock.